Hello everyone, this is John Mark Johnson Jr. again, host of Reformed GGA. Just giving you guys an update on a couple of recent shooting outings. Thought I'd share some targets with you guys. This top target here is for my most recent time of taking out the PMR-30. My primary purpose in taking it out was to test whether or not it would work with aluminum case ammo, and it did flawlessly, not a single hiccup, which is great. However, as you can see that when I was shooting it, groups were not absolutely fantastic. Part of it was just the fact that I was a little bit frustrated when I was doing it, and definitely suffering some recoil management problems, as you see from some of the low stringers in the group, so on and so forth. So yeah, definitely not my best ever, and that's why I didn't score it. But as far as function testing with the PMR-30, absolutely perfect. So no issues out there. And then just yesterday, I finally got around to scoring how I do with the CZ Scorpion. And on the CZ Scorpion, I just use the open sights that it comes with, which are actually pretty good sights, by the way. And I did not terribly great compared to some of my guns. Not that the scores are going to mean a whole lot to you guys, but I got a score of about 2,063. One takes into account the magazine capacity, the other one doesn't. That's why there's two numbers. But this was at 50 yards, and that's how I did. I'm obviously not a great shot, but for open sights, 50 yards, and all I was doing was just sitting at a table. I didn't have anything to rest the gun on, no sandbag or anything like that, just holding it there. And for me, that's pretty good. It's obviously not great, especially on an objective level. For B, that's not bad. And I find this interesting because that actually is pretty comparable to the last time I took out the X95. So just below that you have the X95 Tavor, and the group that you see there is the group that I got. There's how I did with the Scorpion. Both of these are 9mm carbines, and both of these are at 50 yards. Roughly comparable. There's not really a significant difference for me. I'm just as accurate as I am with the Tavor, which has a red dot sight, as I am with the open sights on the CZ Scorpion. Basically no difference between the two, and the scores are virtually identical. 18 something, 63 split, 63 split. For all intents and purposes, the CZ Scorpion and the X95 shoot identically for me. There's no significant difference between them. Now this one was rather exciting for me. This is the PMR-30. It's my 22 Magnum handgun, and I actually did real well the last time I took that out. As you can see, that was back in July, and did 4 targets. And granted, the groups on these targets are not great, but for the drill that I did, it was fantastic. The drill, if you do the drill perfectly, you should be able to do it in 12 shots. It's basically 3 shots on 4 targets. And I didn't do the drill perfectly. I needed to do one more set of 3, but I got just about as close to a perfect score as you can get. I did the drill in 15 shots instead of 12 shots, and that made me extremely, extremely happy. And so for my score for that one was actually rather excellent. I got over 2,071, which means that with that particular handgun, I'm just as accurate as I am with my 9mm carbines. And it's all a recoil issue. That particular gun, because it's 22 Magnum, does not recoil a whole lot, and that allows me to shoot it much more accurately. It just is what it is. And granted, these are only at 10 yards, but still, for me, that's pretty good. Far better than I've ever done before. There was a while back that I broke 1,000 with my PMR. Now I'm broken 2,000. Now, for a proficient handgun shooter who's fairly accurate, they should be able to break 4,000 using the scoring system, so I'm still nowhere near that. But with the PMR, I'm doing pretty good. And then there's my CMR-30, which is the bedside gun that I take with me. And this was 2 3-shot groups at 50 yards, and I use the bigger targets when I do that. But to keep the scoring consistent, I usually just use the inner ring. And you can see most of the shots, except for one flyer up there. All the other shots were either in the ring or touching it. So 6 shots total, 2 3-shot groups. 2 were bullseye, 1 very close to a bullseye, 2 on either side of the bullseye ring, and then 1 flyer out there. So overall, not bad. And the score for that one was rather excellent. 11,300 and basically 67 split. Easily my most accurate gun at range, bar none. And of course this is only at 50 yards, but I've shot this thing at 100 yards as well, and it does just fine at that. I'm still not super accurate, but just the fact that there's so little recoil makes it very manageable. I absolutely love shooting it. Again, not the most effective gun out there, and I'm not the most accurate out there, but it is a hoot to shoot, and for me, one of my more accurate guns. Now, while I have this target out there, I decided to go ahead and shoot the RDB, and it's still having some issues, by the way. And this is a 5-shot group with the RDB, and it's not super great. One pretty extreme flyer down there, and yeah, it's just problematic to say the least. I, in general, would not recommend the RDB, but that's kind of a long discussion. But for the CMR-30, which was my primary reason of shooting that, it was setting this target up in the first place, that's within what I would call acceptable. Alright, and then, do I want to talk about that one yet? No, not quite yet. Now, for handguns, my PMR-30 I did much better on. I did the 12-shot drill in 15 shots, and I tried to do that here, but I kept missing and eventually got frustrated and decided to completely ignore one target. That's what the X is for there. Just decided to ignore that one and go with the 3 that I actually did wind up getting 3-shot groups on. And that right there was actually a pretty fantastic 3-shot group. All of them right in there. That was pretty good. But the other ones weren't super awesome 3-shot groups, but manageable. But still, overall, not a great score. 529, 26.45 split. And for that particular gun, that's relatively normal for me. I usually shoot in the 400s or 500s with it, with the P09. And again, it's just a recoil issue. It's not necessarily a bad gun to shoot or anything like that. It's just I don't do particularly well once I get past the rimfire rounds. It's just normal for me, unfortunately. I can do real well, but most of the time my groups are pretty spread out. And the overall score suffers, sadly. So I really need to work on recoil management with my bigger handguns. Definitely. But while I was out there, I also decided to test the accuracy of my carry ammo, which is on the right, my Fort Scott Munition ammo, to my regular plinking ammo, the Remington green and white box. And of course, these are much bigger targets than I usually use. This was kind of at the end of everything, and I was pretty tired by this point. I'd already done a lot of shooting, and so there's quite a bit of fatigue. And when I shot the Remington green and white box, there was 20 rounds in the gun altogether, and 2 of them I completely missed the target on. I was just fatigued and tired, and so I didn't do so great. But over there I wound up getting a total score of 156 with my carry ammo that I switched to, and this was the very last thing that I shot out of that gun. So at the worst, as far as shooting a number of rounds through it, the gun had gotten pretty dirty by that point because I'm out there in Idaho desert, quite a bit of sand on the gun, those kinds of things. But even at that, I managed to keep all of the shots on the target, which is great. And the score there was 175, so I did better with the carry ammo than I did with my practice ammo. And that is a good thing. That's what you want to have happen. And it was also, frankly, easier to shoot. My carry ammo is only 80 grain bullets compared to the practice ammo that's 115 grain. 80 grain, 115 grain. And that difference in ammo weight translates into better controllability. The lower the grain weight of your bullets, the less felt recoil there's going to be. It makes it a lot easier to manage. So all in all, it did work out better. But like I said, the gun was definitely dirty by this point, And so when I switched over to my carry ammo, I did have a failure to extract problem with that ammo, and it happens with low grain weight ammo. If you get the grain weight too low, you won't be able to operate the slide effectively, especially if there's any kind of grit and grime in the gun, and you can get malfunctions that way, and I did get one malfunction that way. I had a failure to extract. Now that's really easy to fix. It's just, tap, rack, bang, and you're back into it, but that is something to be aware of. Now when that gun is clean, and it's not been out there in the desert all day being exposed to the sand and all that all day long, it has absolutely no problems with that ammo. But if you take any gun and you shoot it long enough, hard enough, you will eventually find a failure point. And so I did find a failure point with my carry ammo. Turns out it doesn't do super good when the gun is dirty. And then also, like I said, by this point I was pretty well fatigued, and so I was kind of limp wristing the gun, and that probably contributed to it as well. But overall, I'm actually very impressed with the ammo. It was more accurate than my regular practice ammo, which is always a good thing. It was certainly easier to shoot than my practice ammo. I do need to be careful about limp wristing it, but other than that, and of course making sure that I keep the gun relatively clean, not putting it through the middle of a sandstorm in Idaho, those kinds of things. But all in all, for the expected operating conditions of the gun and that ammo, it did just fine. So I'm pretty happy about that. Thanks for your time. Bye.